Derbyites. We are back once again for yet another Slugfest with really the cream of the crop. You've been watching Slugfest with our experts and with our in-house editors, and they're all great, but they're not as good as this. Because frankly, this is where it's all at. Let me introduce this cavalcade of stars before we get into the discussion of the state of the race, Oscars 2024 pre-Christmas. I've got Matt Noble, Jack Mahanes, Charles Bright, and Tony Ruiz. Welcome, gentlemen. It's a little bit of a sausage party, but that's okay. We do our best. Maybe one of you might want to dress up in drag next time. That's your call. But for now, I have a very important question that I think we need to start this discussion off with. Okay, and it is: what is the number one thing that you are most excited about this Oscar season at this point in the race? I'm going to you first, Matthew.
Okay, well, I think what is the biggest event for film this year? It was Barbenheimer. And what I'm excited to see is how much will those two movies dominate nominations in the Oscars, and how many of those sort of other films, those more smaller films, be able to upset and sneak into the winner's circle. So I think will we have just a Barbenheimer Oscars, or will there be some other stuff that gets out in front?
Okay, that's interesting. I have a feeling that if there's something that you're rooting for, you're going to be very happy. That's my sense. Jack, yeah. What about you?
I echo a lot of what Matt said. Oppenheimer, I actually did the Barbenheimer thing with my brother opening weekend, and Oppenheimer is actually, this is going to be a big thing to say, and I thought about this for a while. It's, as of right now, not just my favorite film of the year, it's my favorite film of the 2020s. It's really, I loved it that much, and saw it once in theaters, no pun intended, but was blown away by it. And two, when I saw it again, I was able to pick up even more, and it works on every way and every level. It is just such a phenomenal film, and it's one of the best that Nolan has ever made. And yes, and Barbie, when I saw it a few hours after Oppenheimer, it's a lot of fun. I've kind of been going back and forth about how it will do this season in terms of nominations. It can be just, picture, a few texts, maybe screenplay, or it can be do even more than that and, get some actors in, Greta Gerwig, I think, is kind of, on the bubble for director, possibly. And so it is going to be an exciting season. And then this past weekend, two weekends ago, I saw Maestro, and I was surprised how much that exceeded my expectations. I really, really enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I knew I was going to at least like it, but I thought it was great. And I think that, that being a big is going to be, do fairly well. And there's one category I'm very, very confident in it winning, and we'll get to that a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm excited about for the season as of right now.
That's a lot, Jack. That is a lot. I think you're going to need to take some deep breaths throughout this Oscar season, because you have a lot riding on it. Now, Charles, when you're not running for Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, what are you most excited about in this Oscar season?
Bribes.
Yeah, me too.
That's beside the point. No, so what I'm truly excited about, there are two things that I'm really excited about. One is I'm really excited about the prospect of how many potential double-digit films that we have that could get double-digit nominations on nomination morning. We have Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things, Maestro, Barbie, and even The Color Purple, I think, are all realistic possibilities, at least at this stage, to possibly exceed 10 or more nominations. And I think that's going to be, I think that's really exciting, and I think that's really interesting, and I think it adds a bit more of an excitement and uncertainty to the race that I think a lot of us will bitch and moan about, but is something that we honestly like, because it makes it more exciting. The second thing is actually with international feature. I feel like there is no clear frontrunner for international feature, because we have so many fantastic submissions this year. I mean, just alone, with Zone of Interest coming from the UK, and I was about to say Anatomy of a Fall, but I keep forgetting France did not submit it. But Taste of Things and all these other international films, I really feel like it's a very open field, and that could lead to a really interesting and possibly surprising winner come Oscar night.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, when you're not thinking about, or when you're not watching Hallmark Christmas movies, what are you tending to be excited about?
As much as I love exactly what everybody's saying about like the potential for these big films to break through in a really big way, and I agree with Charlie about the double digit thing. I think we could have a lot of double digit nominees. What I love is how there's real potential for some very small films to make very impressive showings, like Anatomy of a Fall, like Zone of Interest, like The Holdovers, which is my #1 film of the year so far. I still have a few things to see, but that film just blew me away. To see things like Past Lives maybe have a shot at some major nominations, to see these small films kind of break through in a really big way, I think is exciting to show the breadth of cinema this year. I think this was a banner year for great filmmaking, and the fact that so many of these, particularly the above the line categories, there are real toss-ups. There are a number of categories. 3 out of the 4 acting categories, I say, are not solidified in any way. I think there could be surprises. There's a lot still left to go, and I think it could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. The most exciting thing for me is kind of similar to what a lot of you have talked about. Oppenheimer for me is, I agree with Jack. To me, that's probably one of the best films of this century so far. And I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but I always think about what's a film that I could watch over and over again and get something new out of it. Every frame impressed me, and Oppenheimer is kind of it. But apart from that, and also the international features, I'm looking forward to seeing Zone of Interest and Anatomy of the Fall, Past Lives, anything that's predominantly not in the English language, Society of the Snow, Taste of Things, to a breakout of the international feature category in other categories. I love seeing, the random cinematography nominations and so on and so forth. I'm looking forward to that. I'm also really excited about the acting races this time because they're quite open at the moment, and we will talk about that in a minute as well. So before we move on, I think with all the currently all the precursors that have come up so far, to me seem very same, very similar. Like they're all pretty much nominating the same things, which is surprising to me. It's such a strong year for film. There's so many great films out there that are not really making a dent in the Oscar race, and I really hope that starts to change. And it's a little disappointing. But talking about the same stuff, let's talk about Barbie, because that was probably the big pop culture phenomenon of 2023. It's going to do very well, of course. We all know that. We're all expecting to see Ryan Gosling nominated at this stage. I'm curious about Margot Robbie. Does anyone in this group think that Margot Robbie won't be nominated, or feels that she's on very shaky ground?
I do not have her in my lineup. Then again, I also don't have Barbie in my Best Picture lineup right now because I still feel very apprehensive about how it might play. And I think one of the things that I think reinforces that is the fact that Margot Robbie, at least to me, is on very shaky ground. When you look at other contenders like Emma Stone, Sandra Huller, Lily Gladstone, Carey Mulligan, with the reviews that have been coming in so far with The Color Purple, Fantasia Barrino, and you can never count out Annette Bening either. And also Greta Lee for Past Lives. I mean, it's a lead actress is really stacked, and it's even a performance that is as wonderful as Margot Robbie is in Barbie. It feels like, because it may not be viewed as serious, and it doesn't have quite the comedic scene stealing things that Ryan Gosling has in there. She's a bit on more shaky ground. She's definitely in the race though, but I think it's very worrying.
Isn't that crazy?
So I'm curious though, Charlie. So you don't have, I assume, the 4 that you mentioned: Stone, Huller, Gladstone, and Mulligan. I assume you have those in.
Yes.
Who's your 5th?
Fantasia.
Oh,
Okay, yeah, I see. I have Margot Robbie right now.
Mhm.
Yeah. I just feel
But I
like
mean, I easily could put in, Greta Lee, because that movie is doing very, very well right now, and also could put in there, Annette Bening, just because she's Annette Bening, and Netflix is pushing that movie really hard. So, yeah, it's a really tough call in that, and we'll see that with a lot of these acting categories as well.
yeah, we're going to see people miss out, which really deserve to be there, but that's because the category is so stacked. But if Barbie's such a huge hit, Jack, then why wouldn't Margot Robbie be right out in front? She is Barbie, and she really makes, I think she is, the highlight of the film, and she's also a producer. She's everything about what makes Barbie so good.
That's a good question, and I think Margot Robbie is someone who's on the bubble. I think you have four safe bets at the moment for Best Actress: Emma Stone, Lily Gladstone, Sandra Hüller, and Carey Mulligan. And I think it's that fifth slot that's just really kind of in question at the moment. I also have Fantasia, but as I also have not seen The Color Purple because it hasn't opened here yet, so I can't speak to her performance. I can only speak to those I know who have gotten a chance to see it, and they said she's very good, and she could get a good amount of #1 votes. I think it's because when you have to really look at, and this is what I've been wondering about with the Barbie actors in general, when you do your nominating ballot, they count your #1s first. And Margot Robbie, there's a scenario where maybe she's on a lot of 3s and 4s, but she's not on a lot of #1s, and maybe that's probably why she's kind of on the bubble to where I think there's a chance she could get in, but I also think that there's a chance she can miss. I will say if Barbie does very well at SAG with SAG nominations, that should be a major hint that she has a very, very good chance of getting in, because we've seen Barbie do well at groups that are not, the industry. They're not Academy voters.
Yeah.
Like the Critics' Choice. So I think it's that's a case where it's like we have to kind of see more, more groups weigh in to know for sure how strong she is to get in.
Do you agree, Matt?
Yeah, I think Jack's hit the nail on the head here with that, and Charlie too, actually. Charlie, I think, summarized very well that we've got about 8 contenders that all are legitimate, sort of vying for these 5 slots. And I think it's really hard. When I'm doing my predictions, I'm always having to leave someone out who I think should get nominated, so that makes this a really tricky category to predict. And I think Jack's right in that it will be who can get those passion votes with the way the Oscars do their voting system, who will get those #1 slots on people's ballots.
Yeah.
And I think, Margot Robbie is someone, even though I've got her in 3rd at the moment on my list, because I think Barbie was so big, and I think she was such an icon, iconic role of film this year, and we're seeing Barbie do well in nominations. She's easily someone who a lot of people, it might be their 3rd or 4th, on everyone's ballot, but doesn't get enough 1s or 2s. Greta Lee is someone with a lot of passion, right? People who love that performance. She probably won't be on as many ballots as Margot Robbie, but she could get more #1 slots. So I think it's tricky. I think the race and where it is so up in the air that once you have your nominees, if there's votes splitting between Stone and Gladstone, could Margot Robbie upset, and find a path there? I think once you've got the nominees, we have interesting discussions, but I think there's going to be a huge snub in this category, just because I think there's more than 5 people who should be getting in.
Yeah.
There will be justifiable anger. There will be justifiable anger after the nomination announcement.
That's for sure. And Charles, we know that Emma Stone in Poor Things has really she's kind of hit the front, the lead of the pack, because the film's been so well received by critics. But I just wonder, do you have any reservations like I do that the Steak Eaters, using Anne Thompson's really wonderful explanation of how a lot of the Academy are older, whiter, and more conservative, are they going to go for a film like Poor Things, and particularly a performance like this where there's a lot of sex, there's a lot of nudity, and it's a little off the wall? What do you think?
I mean, I would be more cautious about it, but they really loved The Favorite. And The Favorite, even though, you know, it may have the look of being, you know, like just a fun little period comedy. Like when The Favorite screened at the Middleburg Film Festival, when I saw it in 2018, you could tell half of that room was really digging it and was really like all for it. But the other half of that room was like Washington suburbanites who were like, I thought this was going to be a fun little period piece movie. What the hell am I watching? And I can tell, and there were a couple walkouts as well. And the fact that they went for that, especially, you know, the fact that it's, you know, this reuniting of Yorgos Lanthimos as director, Tony McNamara as screenwriter, and Emma Stone as one of your primary performers, I think it will do well. And I also think it's gonna do well with these with the branches, with the tech categories. I think it has strong claims to get in and editing, cinematography, production design, costume design, possibly visual effects, sound, score. There's all sorts of areas where this film could get in, and I really think that people have really liked it, especially when they see it in a theater in that sort of atmosphere.
It will be interesting though, because like since with the Oscars for nominations, different branches vote on their own fields. If it is a very polarizing film, whether there'll be some branches that recognize it and some branches that are more turned off to it. So that'll be really interesting to see. You could see a discrepancy, like it pops up in a few unexpected places, but also misses out in one or two places where we think it'll be.
And you know,
I take nothing for granted after Top Gun Maverick missing cinematography earlier this year.
Yeah.
Which you know, after that happened, I'm taking nothing for granted. I don't think anything's set in stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think, you know, you bring up the whole idea of the steak eaters, and one of the things that I think we have to remember is that you know, the Academy has expanded so much in the last several years, and I think we started to see a change. If you look at the recent history of some of the winners, when you get winners like Moonlight, and when you get winners like Everything Everywhere All at Once, a lot of the old things, you know, because I remember originally feeling like Everything Everywhere All at Once was too weird for the Oscars, and look what it did last year. So I think that threshold has now shifted, where, you know, you have a young, gorgeous woman doing a lot of sex scenes. Let's face facts, some people will go for that, just you know, based on pure horniness. But it doesn't hurt. But you also have this very much younger, more active segment of Academy voters that I think will just go right for this. And boy, they are, I mean, Emma Stone is in this kind of sweet spot where, you know, we can't use the thing, it's been too recently that she won. We can't use that anymore, because that rule has gone out the window so many times. And I feel like it's such a big performance that, you know, I hear a lot of people saying, you know, oh yeah, Gladstone has this. I don't think anybody has this right now. I think it's too early.
As it should be. And Jack, you're right. When SAG gives us their nominations, and of course when BAFTA and SAG winners happen, and we're talking about winners already, we should really wait and see. Some of these won't even be nominated. But Jack, don't you believe that this is where we could see a surprise? There are contenders like Natalie Portman, Anjanou Ellis-Taylor, Kaylee Spaney, Annette Bening. You know, 3 months ago, I had Annette Bening in my first position, thinking this was going to be the year they finally award her, and now I don't even have her in my top 5. So, I mean, if this is a category that is really open for some shocks.
Is there going to be an Andrea Riceborough this year?
I hope so. I hope it's Trace Lysette from Monica. She is phenomenal in that film, but no one's seeing it. So, Jack, do you see a surprise happening in Best Actress in terms of the nominees?
Possibly. I mean, I do think, you know, it is down to like what, 8 people that could, you know, possibly get in. I think the thing I'm more wondering about, like, could this be like Best Actress of 2020, where we see different winners at different precursors, and then that's the one, that's the one that on Oscar night we're all like holding our breath, like, okay, there are like 4 real possibilities of who could win. Who's going to win it? In terms of
I'd like Vanessa Kirby to get nominated again and then not make any dent in anything because she couldn't get arrested in that town during that campaign. Felt so bad for her.
She's so
that would
good
be tough.
though. Oh God.
Gosh, I don't know. Natalie Portman, maybe. I do have May December getting in both supporting categories at the moment. Haley Spaney, it doesn't seem like Priscilla really made that much noise, and I saw Clayton Davis say something that, you know, like Origin was like not being seen that much. So I don't know if Anjanou Ellis can get in, but yeah, no, I just think that, you know, as I said earlier, I think you have 4 that are safe until we see otherwise, and then I think, you know, it's gonna, you know, take a few weeks before we can, you know, start to really make the best guess possible who's gonna get that last slot. And I feel like I'm going to be going back and forth between quite a few people for that last slot, but I am not buying Annette Bening in any way. I'm a huge Annette Bening fan, but I'm not buying her getting in for that movie.
Yeah, I think it might be over for her, and that's a real shame. Let's move on to Best Actor, because generally speaking, there are a bunch of contenders who are very much in the race, and then we have some also Rands that could absolutely break in. So like Cillian Murphy, Bradley Cooper, Paul Giamatti, Leonardo DiCaprio. I don't think he is at risk at all. I think he's totally safe. And Jeffrey Wright, Colin Domingo, Andrew Scott, Barry Keoghan, maybe someone like Teo Yu and Joaquin Phoenix, but I think that's pretty much it. Am I missing anyone, you think, Matt? I'm not sure.
No, not really. Like, I do feel like this one, to me, you've got your like, which is a bit different to the actress race. You've got your 5 front runners, or maybe 6. Maybe there's 6 vying for that sort of 5 slots, and then it's going to be hard for anyone else to break in there. Whereas I think the actress race is more, you've got your 8 or 9 contenders, and it's sort of a bit like hard to know exactly who's going to miss out. I feel like this is a bit more of a stable race, at least in terms of predicting. I don't know.
That's a really interesting comment. I wonder why that is. Like, I just think, like, Charlie, do you think that Barry Keoghan could break in for Saltburn? I would love to see it.
I would, believe me, I would love to see that as well. I have a tough time seeing like Saltburn. I actually think that might be a movie that might be a bit too far for some of the Academy voters, as opposed to Poor Things. But Keoghan, I mean, he broke through last year with Banshees, and really just, I mean, commands this movie. And I think it's a long shot, because I don't see Saltburn doing well outside in other places. I don't see Emerald Fennell being a serious contender to get in for directing. Maybe the screenplay. I don't see it being a serious contender in Best Picture. The only other category I can, or, you know, maybe cinematography and production design. And believe me, if Rosamund Pike could score a nomination in supporting actress for her performance in that movie, I will be dancing on the rooftop, because she so deserves it. But I really feel like it really feels like, as opposed to Poor Things, which has been hitting in a lot of places, Saltburn has not been. I mean, you know, it gets what did he at Critics' Choice? It got into picture, but none of the actors got in. I don't think the screenplay even got in, if I remember correctly. I think it only got a couple of texts other than picture. So I really think that film is proving more divisive than Poor Things, and so I really feel like Barry Keoghan is more of a very big long shot.
Okay. Jack, do you have anything to add to the Best Actor race? Because there's also outliers like Zac Efron, Matt Damon, Adam Driver, even Sir Anthony Hopkins, which no one's really seen Freud's Last Session yet. I have seen it. I did some interviews. That's the only reason why I saw it. He's great. He's really good in it again. But do you think anyone could break through here, or are we looking at pretty much the top 5 with perhaps maybe a 6th or 7th spoiler?
I'm going to say top 6. I think you have 3 people who I think I don't see a scenario where they miss. Cooper, Murphy, and Giamatti. DiCaprio, I feel like, and DiCaprio is my favorite actor, so I don't want to be biased at all. So I think he should be nominated. But I see a small chance where he misses. My opinion is, I think you have 3 people who are like vying for those last 2 slots. And I think it's him, Coleman Domingo and Jeffrey Wright. And I think one person's going to miss. It's kind of like with supporting actress last year, where I feel like you had, 4 that were safe at that point, and then you had like people kind of vying for that last slot. And so I kind of think this is kind of similar. But this is, I know we're mostly talking nominations, but this is, I remember texting my good friend Tariq Khan after seeing the movie, and I just said, I used the term gavel pounded. I think a lot of the acting races are going to be races. I think Cooper has this. I think he has this.
Imagine if he doesn't even get nominated, which is certainly.
I know, that would be crazy.
Tony,
Just to piggyback off that, I think I'm mostly in agreement with you there, Jack. But I would add one other person who I think is a serious person to possibly get in. That's Andrew Scott for All of Us Strangers, because that's looking like it's a very possible player or to get nominated in adapted screenplay. So I think and so I think he's much more of a long shot. I will grant you, but like I could easily see him being respected amongst the actors particularly, and possibly snagging one of those slots.
Okay,
it is possible. Now that you mentioned that, maybe I shouldn't entirely write him off. I just, I maybe he can get into BAFTA, and I think if we see him pop up at BAFTA, then maybe we have to definitely take him more serious as a contender. I think that BAFTA was kind of one of those tea leaves that convinced me that Paul Mescal was going to get in for After Sun last year.
one of the most inspired nominations in years. Made me so happy. Tony, that's the beauty of having this conversation now pre-Christmas, because once BAFTA nominations and the SAG nominations come out, then we will have that plus the Golden Globes. I don't really give a lot of credence to the Critics' Choice, to be completely honest. I mean, they're fine, but I feel like they tend to try to predict the Oscars and not actually award what they think is the best. If it was the real Critics' Choice, it would be more like a Here's to Cinema or something like that. Like there's a lot more kind of left field choices, but they just like to be the predictor, and that's boring to me. So if you're looking at Globes, SAG, BAFTA, we'll have a very good idea then of who's really solidifying their chances. But at this stage, Tony, do you think that anyone could be a real spoiler here in Best Actor?
I'm being the weird one, and I actually don't have DiCaprio in right now. I have Andrew Scott and Jeffrey Wright. I think Coleman Domingo could be in kind of a precarious spot, because outside of maybe an original song nomination, I don't see Rustin necessarily getting in at a lot of places. I think Andrew Scott has kind of certainly has momentum. Now Coleman Domingo also has Color Purple, so they could definitely people who are fans of him in that movie could reward him in Best Actor. I think that there's 7 actors vying for 5 slots. But I completely agree with you about Critics' Choice. I think it's an interesting thing when the Golden Globe nominations were far more interesting this year than Critics' Choice. To me, the biggest long shot, and maybe this is just my love of this movie, but Franz Rogowski in Passages, if he got in for that, that's one of those performances that could get that kind of passion. I think if there is an Andrea Riseborough, I think Franz Rogowski could be one person who could do it.
And there you go. That's what I think the Critics' Choice should be there for him, for Trace Lysette, for those contenders who the critics really love, the audiences haven't really seen yet, and to shine a spotlight. Unfortunately, they keep missing a boat, like that year where they decided to give The Force Awakens a nomination after they had announced the nominees. It was very odd. Let's talk about
just to throw out one more contender. Like, I think it's interesting, and the momentum for this film stalled a little bit, but if Past Lives is a big hit with Academy voters, it's sort of weird that TOU's not getting mentioned at all, but his female compatriot is sort of
regrettably
he is so
good.
good.
So that's an interesting one.
How do you nominate one but not the other?
Right.
Yeah. And it's partly because of just the nature of the race and the contenders in both of those fields. But if we're looking at an outside the box sort of nomination, if there's just a lot of love for Past Lives and that pops up in a few unexpected places, maybe he'll get enough #1 votes to break in here.
Yeah. Let's move on to supporting actress, because this is a really interesting race. The way I saw it was Divine Joy Randolph has been a front runner for some time, before the Holdovers even came out. Then Color Purple hit, and a lot of people shifted. Oh, this is all about Danielle Brooks. But then all the critics, regional critics, and Globes and Critics' Choice came out, and Divine Joy Randolph has pretty much won almost everything so far. And so she's back in the lead. I feel like this is her category to lose. And now that I've seen Holdovers, and I can see why. It's not a super showy performance where she's throwing stuff across the screen and screaming and carrying on, but it is so beautiful and perfect that I really want to see her win. But guess what, guys? This category has, to me, 13 to 14 real contenders. I'm just going to quickly list off these names. I'm going to go to you first, Tony. After Divine Joy, you've got Danielle Brooks, Emily Blunt, Jodie Foster, Julianne Moore, Taraji P. Henson, America Ferrera, Penelope Cruz, Rosamund Pike, Rachel McAdams, Viola Davis, Sandra Hüller, Vanessa Kirby. That's a lot. That's a lot. And I could see any of those people make the list, honestly. Tony, how are you feeling about supporting actress? This is a category that I'm really watching with, like, really carefully, because it's a fascinating category.
Yeah, I am completely there with you, because I think 4 of these slots are pretty secure. I think Randolph is solidly out front, and I completely agree with you. My love for the Holdovers has no bounds, and her performance is so one of those just perfect supporting actress performances. You want to just give her a hug the entire movie. But that 5th slot, I think there's at least 7, 8, 9 people that could easily go in that last slot. If Barbie is a big force here, I could totally see America Ferrera getting in, because she has the monologue, the applause scene that even people who didn't go see Barbie in the theater know that people busted out in spontaneous applause during her monologue. So, those types of scenes, can get you a nomination. I could see Jodie Foster. I could see Penelope Cruz. I could see Taraji. I could see Sandra Hüller pull double nomination.
Can you imagine?
It's exhausting, but it's also thrilling to have that problem. So I don't know what to do with that 5th slot.
Charlie, I know that you really want to see Rosamund Pike. Do you think she'll actually be? I mean, what are the top 4? It's Divine Joy, Danielle, Emily, and who? Jodie?
Julianne.
Okay, who's getting if Rosamund Pike doesn't do it, Charlie, then who do you think is the most likely contender?
Well, it's weird because I don't have Julianne in my lineup, so I have Taraji and Jodie Foster as my other 2. I think those are the ones that I got. Jodie Foster, though, I'm not extremely confident about that. This film is not really hitting in any other areas other than supporting actress and possibly actress. And we saw, even when Jodie Foster managed to win the Golden Globe for The Mauritanian a couple of years ago, she still couldn't get an Oscar nomination. She hasn't been nominated for an Oscar since Nell, I think.
Yes.
Nell.
Yes.
Yeah, in 1994. So it's yes, I know. So it's very easy for me to see her possibly not even getting in for this. I think Rosamund Pike getting into that Golden Globe race was a really key thing for her. It puts her in the conversation. I do think, and I know Rachel McAdams has been cited by a lot of critics groups for her performance in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. So I really feel like it's almost like anything is possible in this one. And I think, Rosamund Pike has just as much a shot as possibly, America Ferrera or Jodie Foster or Viola Davis.
So fascinating, Matt. You and I saw Napoleon together at the premiere in Sydney, and we had our thoughts about the film overall, but we both, I remember, walked out and said, geez, Vanessa Kirby, she was amazing. She got nominated for an actor award, so only the Australians seem to really be loving her performance, but I still feel like she's in the conversation. That's where I'm sitting. Do you have a contender that you think could do it that no one's really talking about yet, or are you pretty much just on the top five?
No. So like, I've got the top three we're all talking about. I've got Foster in, and perhaps like perhaps it's the fact she hasn't been nominated for so long could be a good part of her narrative actually as well. That's a really lovely moment for the Oscars to bring her back into the nominee circle. But the two contenders that are a bit lower that are still on the list that you read to us before, Rob, that I really think is Hulla and Viola Davis from Air. I'd love Air to break through in a few categories at the Oscars. I just think watching that film for me was so much like, oh, this is such like a bit of an old school film in a really great way. Just like a really like underdog story, sort of based on a true story. There's some good comedy moments in there. It's like, just like you felt good watching it. And Viola Davis is so good in that film. So I think and she just, she gets Oscar nominations all the time. So like sort of I could see her coming in, and it would be lovely to see. Like, and I wonder if there's Oscar voters that like me watch Air and go like, this just makes you feel good, this film. Like, this is like some of your old school sort of movie making, storytelling sort of stuff. So they're the ones I'm sort of thinking about at the moment.
I totally agree. I was so skeptical about Viola Davis, thinking, everything she does, do we have to nominate her all the time? And I'm like, geez, she's so good in Air. Happy to nominate her. Go for gold.
Yes, we do have to nominate her all the time.
It's like compulsory.
Except for last year.
Yeah. Very fair.
Yeah. Just ask Danielle Deadweiler as well. Jack Mahanes, what about you in supporting actress?
I'm actually going to disagree that Divine Joy Randolph is the one out front. And I know The Color Purple underperformed at the Golden Globes, and it even underperformed at Critics' Choice, but I agree with you. I don't really read too much into Critics' Choice. But, for what I know about Danielle Brooks, she has that scene-stealing moment with the musical number of Hell No. And usually the performances that win this category are like those big scene stealing, like the one that everyone's talking about coming out of it. And I don't think that you can say that about Divine Joy Randolph. She's wonderful in the movie, but she doesn't really have like that scene stealing moment. Like, she doesn't steal the movie from Paul Giamatti or I'm so sorry. What's
Dominic Sessa.
Dominic Sessa.
Yeah, Dominic Sessa. Yeah, she doesn't really steal the movie from him. And think about it. Musical performances really do great in supporting actress. Anne Hathaway in Les Mis, Ariana DeBose in West Side Story, Jennifer Hudson Dreamgirls, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Chicago. That's what usually wins this category. And, and I do still have her winning the Globe, because sometimes when you're deemed like the front runner very early on, like regardless of how the film performs, like how, Whiplash, I think only got in for J.K. Simmons at the Globes, but he still won. Judas and the Black Messiah wasn't really a big contender early on, but Daniel Kaluuya still won. And so I think that, if she wins the Globe, then I think that she might be set, because from everything I know about Danielle Brooks' performance, and again, I only have to rely on people who've seen it because I won't be able to see it until the holidays. If she wins the Globe, and I think that, that performance is probably very, very likely to win SAG. That seems like the performance SAG goes for it too. So I have her out front, and I think the one thing I also want to mention, you mentioned about the critics sweep. There are a lot of people who sweep the critics very early on in the season, but once we get to the industry, they do their own thing. I think the biggest one I remember was both Willem Dafoe and Laurie Metcalf had a 2-to-1 edge over everyone else, and people just thought, oh, they're unbeatable. They're gonna win everything this season. But then once we got to the Golden Globes, that all completely changed. So I'm taking Divine Joy Randolph's critic sweep with a grain of salt. And by the way, Tony, Holdovers is actually my second favorite of the year so far that I've seen. So I'm with you. I thought that was fantastic.
And Oppenheimer's my second favorite too. So so we both have
we
taste.
have that in common.
Yeah. Holdovers is in my top five.
And
Although
I'm actually,
I did see something. I did see something recently. I don't remember where I saw it. Probably somewhere in the dregs of film Twitter. That the last time that there was, and yeah, you're completely right. Things could totally change for Randolph come Globe's time. However, if Divine Joy Randolph wins the Globe, I think that will be the steamroll, because we haven't seen somebody dominate critics like this. Somebody pointed that Ke Huy Quan last year was like practically every critics award, and then the Globe, and then SAG, and then the Oscar, and so on and so forth. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Randolph is ahead, but again, things could change at the Globes. Who knows?
And I mean, we
I
should be lucky as to. Oh no, go on, Matt.
I was just going to say, I'm actually predicting Emily Blunt to win this category, which is a bit of a bit of stubbornness maybe on my part, but like also just best pick. It's the best picture front runner. She, like she won a SAG a couple of years ago for A Quiet Place. She's sort of she's still pretty young, Emily Blunt, but the overdue sort of person that could be in the race and just sort of someone beloved in the industry. And yeah, so I actually think she could take it out at the end if there's enough love for Oppenheimer, and she's great. Like, it's a great supporting performance.
And I
just think we should be so lucky as to live in a world where our front runners for supporting actress are actresses like Divine Joy Randolph and Danielle Brooks. It's proof that we may not be living in the darkest timeline.
Yes.
To your point, Matt, I actually been wondering, could Emily Blunt win the Golden Globe? Because she's been nominated so many times before. This is, I think, her 5th or 6th nomination. Given, how big Oppenheimer is this season, even if she doesn't win anywhere else, I could actually see her winning the Globe, honestly. I actually have her in 2nd.
I would love to see her win. I don't buy the argument from people, oh, look, her performance she doesn't have enough screen time, it's too subtle. I don't agree. I think she's wonderful in that film. And I want to see her win. She's talk about overdue. Like, come on, man. She already deserves 2 or 3 Oscar nominations under her belt. She's got none. So let's move on to supporting actor, though. That's actually my favorite category at the moment. I'm most excited about, because to me, there's so much to talk about. Let me just rattle off these names for you all, and then whoever wants to talk first can go for it. So far, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Robert De Niro, Ryan Gosling, Charles Melton, Willem Dafoe, Sterling K. Brown, Colin Domingo, Dominic Sessa, Glenn Howerton, maybe John Magaro, who would be my choice from Past Lives, maybe Jacob Elordi, I doubt it. And then we've got two outsiders that I would cry if they made it in. Milo Machado Greener from Anatomy of a Fall, unbelievable child performance, and honestly, Jason Bateman in Air blew me away. He was so funny and so perfect. This category, to me, whoever makes it in, I'm going to be happy, because I love all of them. So who would like to go first?
My joyous thing that would make me jump for joy is if Dominic Sessa got in. I think between, you've got him and Charles Melton kind of occupying kind of the same space, but I think Sessa's performance, the fact that this is a new actor, his film debut, oh my God, he just has a confidence and has such a hard job, because this kid has to be a total asshole, and damaged and endearing, and you want to root for him. I mean, it's such a strong and really secure performance for a first-time actor. I was also kind of taken with, I was shocked at how much I loved Sterling K. Brown in American Fiction. I think he just came out of nowhere in that movie and shocked the hell out of me. But yeah, I mean, right now I have the top 5 in Gold Derby's odds. I have those 5 predicted, but I could also see a world where Matt Damon for Oppenheimer gets in. I could see Paul Mescal getting in for All the Strangers. This is a long list of people that could get in.
So you believe Matt Damon's chances of getting in are near zero? Get it? Like the line in the movie?
Yes.
That took me a while, but that's okay. What else?
Oh, I get it. I get
I
jokes.
get it. Is there anyone that we're missing? Or, I mean, like, what's the top five really? Gosling, De Niro, Ruffalo, Downey Jr. What, Milton versus Defoe seems to be how people are thinking, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one. I'd love God, I would like to see Melton do it because he's a newish actor, and it's a great performance, and the people seem to really be responding to him in May, December. But Willem Dafoe, he's really good as well in Poor Things. It would make it easier for Mark Ruffalo to eventually win, maybe, if Willem Dafoe wasn't there. And I want to see Mark Ruffalo win. I'm really excited that the top two, as far as I can see at the moment, Ruffalo and Downey Jr., Matt, they're both Marvel superheroes.
Yeah.
And both of them don't have Oscars. And
Iron Man versus the Hulk.
Iron Man versus the Hulk. Honestly, if Robert Downey Jr. wins for Oppenheimer, I will be thrilled. He's one of the greats.
Yeah, and like supporting actor, you see villains like triumph here, and I don't know. I feel like he's out in front. I do think if he gets upset though, it could very well be Ryan Gosling, because that was just such an iconic performance of the year, and he's so different to all the other performances in the field. Like the other, like, it's not even that I necessarily think Ryan Gosling is gonna come second in the race. It's just the others, I like find it harder to see them overtaking Downey Jr. than I do Ryan Gosling, who I'm like, because they'll be going in a completely different direction. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Charles?
I'm completely with you on that. I would say that I could, and maybe if it picks up a bit more steam as we get going, I think we could see Robert De Niro possibly, have a late surge and possibly overtake. But I do feel like Downey, as stacked as this category is, I feel pretty comfortable with having Downey out front. I do have Gosling at number 2 because I think what he does with that performance is just incredible, and is just I think a testament to how incredible he is as a comedic actor, which I don't think enough people recognize. And he's already a 2-time nominee, so he's been around the block. But I do think I feel pretty good about Downey being out front right now.
Yeah. Who hasn't had a chance to talk about this category before we move on? Go for it.
Yeah.
So I also have Downey Jr. out front, and this is one where I'm not entirely sure. I just kind of have him out front for now because it kind of feels like the one that makes the most sense. I do feel like, Tom O'Neill always says, like, back in the olden days, the best picture frontrunner usually wins an acting award. And I feel like if Oppenheimer is the one that is going to win Best Picture, and if it's going to win an acting award, this is probably the safest place, because it really is looking like Bradley Cooper's pulling far ahead for lead actor. Emily Blunt, I think she's definitely going to get her first nomination finally, because she should have gotten in for Devil Wears Prada, in my opinion. But I do think, that race is going to come down to Daniel Brooks and Devon Joy Randolph. And so I feel like if Oppenheimer wins any acting award, and it would make sense for this to be the one, because, and also Downey Jr. is a 2-time nominee. He's been nominated for Chaplin and for Tropic Thunder. So he's clearly well liked by his fellow actors. And so is Mark Ruffalo, who has 3 previous nominations. But I do think, it just makes the most sense for Robert Downey Jr. at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
There is something, just I want to, before we move on from these acting races, what Jack just said reminded me again. I think we have a new paradigm when it comes to this idea that a Best Picture frontrunner has to have an acting win. I just looked up just right now. I mean, Argo didn't have an acting win. Birdman, Spotlight, Parasite. you know, I'm wondering if A Shape of Water also didn't have an acting win. I'm wondering if, you know, and here's a question I have for a lot of people. You know, Killers of the Flower Moon really underperformed just at the box office, just in terms of actual box office numbers. Does anybody think that could have an impact on its nomination haul?
Maybe.
Possibly.
I feel
Oh,
like
and Tony, I only meant that like it doesn't always happen, but sometimes like it often happens that
Yeah.
a best
Yeah.
picture.
And it's interesting that we hadn't seen that for a while. We hadn't seen that. We actually had seen that be the case, where it doesn't happen. But the last 3 years that has happened.
Yeah. I feel like Killers of the Flower Moon is at risk of winning anything. I'm concerned that it could get 8, 9 nominations, perhaps, maybe more, maybe less, and do quite well, and then go home empty-handed like The Irishman. And I hope it doesn't happen.
Or Banshees.
Like
Banshees.
Banshees. Really
Scorsese.
upsetting.
The other Scorsese movie, Gangs of New York.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
It just keeps happening. And when I watched Killers of the Flower Moon quite late in the piece, I left it till almost last because I was this anxiety inside that I think, oh, it's not going to live up to my expectations. I'll just wait. It's really long. And I really dug that film. I thought it was wonderful. And I think it really deserves to win at least a couple of awards if it can get the nominations, and including Lily Gladstone. But yeah, that's a tough one. It's concerning for Martin Scorsese's films that he just cannot seem to get any actual hardware. I want to end with this question from everybody, because otherwise we'll just be here till Christmas, literally. And that is the one nomination out left field that could happen. That's, you feel like, there's no guts, no glory predictions. I'll give you mine to give you an idea of where I'm headed with this. And it's a pretty random thing. But I'm feeling like in best editing, I would really like to see, and I feel like it's going to happen, and I'm going to predict it, that John Wick Chapter 4 is going to be nominated. Not an Oscar bait film. No one would have thought of that 6 months ago, but I've seen it come up quite a bit in nominations. And it's like editing sometimes does that with the Bourne films, with the Matrix, I think Black Hawk Down, things like that, right? So that I feel like that could happen. Editing and sometimes cinematography gives us those little nuggets of something different outside the square. Does anybody have anything like that that could come up in any of the below the line categories or even in the big ones?
In the directing category, we have never had an animated film nominated for Best Director. But if anyone could do it with the current makeup of the Academy, I think it's Hayao Miyazaki for The Boy and the Heron. I mean, this is a movie that he had announced after The Wind Rises that he was retiring. Now he comes back, and everybody's been waiting for this return to cinema by this incredible director, respected immensely, especially by international voters. And we've seen that come through in the directing category with people like Pavel Polakowski and Thomas Vinterberg. I think it's possible. So I understand it's a long shot, and I can't guarantee I'm going to keep it until Oscar nomination morning, but damn it, I think it's possible. And so I'm going for it.
That's what I like to see. That would be phenomenal. And it happens in director all the time. The auteur, that fifth slot.
And he is an auteur. He is he's a legitimate auteur, previous Oscar winner, as well as already an honorary Oscar recipient as well.
Yeah.
And then that would really upend the best animated film race, and I would say The Boy and the Heron would then.
Well, I still think it's a very. Yeah, I still think that race is. I don't think Spider-Man is as out front as a lot of people think it is. I think I think it's really a coin toss right now between that and The Boy and the Heron.
And Toy Story is the only sequel that's ever won that category. So, like, I'm pretty sure. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So, like, And Toy Story's in a league of its own in terms of its role in sort of cinema and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think I agree Spider-Man's not as strong, even though it's in my top spot.
Mm-hmm. Who else? Anything else before we call it a day?
I think,
yeah.
Oh,
No,
I was going to say, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but I think, I'm not predicting it yet, but supporting actor, I think, often throws us some curveball nominations, like Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway last year, or Michael Shannon for Nocturnal Animals. It would be awesome if Dominic Sessa actually got in, and I wouldn't entirely count that out. And we've seen that, we like a great young up and coming newcomer like Lucas Hedges can get nominated for Manchester by the Sea when you're in a movie that Academy members are going to see, that most of them are going to probably really enjoy. And so I wouldn't write him off yet. I kind of have him on the bubble, and I think that category, I think we'll probably see some, oh my God, where did that nomination come from? And I think that he's someone to maybe watch out for.
Or like when they threw us the Judd Hirsch curveball last year also.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Poor Paul Dano.
Yeah, that's right. Tony, have you got any that come to mind? There's no pressure.
I would love to see Holdovers get a costume design nomination. I think the costumes, that movie feels like, I heard somebody refer to it as, it's very, for you old people like me, it's very much like an old Hal Ashby movie from the 70s. It has such a specific look and feel, and the costumes are such a big part of that. So I would love that. I would also love the sound for Zone of Interest to get in.
I think that's a really good possibility.
I would do a cartwheel.
Especially when you look at when the LA Film Critics awarded Michael Levy the best score, they specifically also cited Johnny Byrne and his sound work there. And because it's sound engineers, who are the ones that did it. And if you want to learn more about that, you can watch my interview with Johnny Byrne from earlier this year. I think it's going to do really. I actually feel really good about that getting into sound. I think that's I think the grounds for that are very solid.
Oh, and one more, and this is the longest of long shots. I don't have any anticipation that this will happen, but any kind of Oscar recognition for Godzilla -1, that movie is stunning. I didn't think a Godzilla movie could be one of my favorite movies of the year, and it is.
Yeah.
Visual effects, man. I think it's getting in.
Yeah. It to me, it deserves like adapted screenplay, sound, score, maybe. It's phenomenal. And I've never really been into that genre, except for that one film directed by Guillermo del Toro that I've forgotten the name. Pacific Rim. Was that him? Maybe not.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I have two more quickly, and then we'll probably have to call it a day. But there are two songs that I'm hoping for. Drift by Cynthia Erivo and Laura Mvula from her small film, and also High Life from Flora and Son. Flora and Son came and went. No one seemed to really care that much about it. It's a beautiful film by John Carney, who did Once and Begin Again and Sing Street. And Eve Hewson, who some of us know from Bad Sisters, is in that, and it's a beautiful film and it's a great song. We'll see. I think song is almost wrapped up for Billie Eilish again, which would be totally fine. I'd rather see the Dua Lipa song actually make it in, but we'll see. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your insight, and everybody watching this, thank you for joining us. Please comment down below, subscribe, all those things. We're all, I think, on social media, Twitter and so on and so forth, so you can find us there. And you know what I'm going to say next, and that is Gold Derby. There's really no better place for Oscar and all awards coverage than Gold Derby. All of the in-house and all of the freelancers, freelance editors that work there are so passionate about what we do. And we will be back in the new year for more and more. Of course, we have coverage right through the Christmas period, but this group will try to get back together at some point in the new year to talk about all the things that are happening in the Oscar race after we had seen quite a lot of movement in the Oscar race. So in the meantime, everybody, if I don't see you, have a great Christmas, happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, whatever it might be, and a great new year, and we will see you in 2020.